Imagine your heating breaks. Just for one night, the room gets cold, you put on a hoodie, then another hoodie. Then you start walking around your home like a sad indoor penguin, wondering if this is how people died in the old days. Now imagine there is no heating, no house, no supermarket, no emergency services, no weather app. Outside, the ground is frozen, the wind is trying to remove your face. And somewhere out there are animals so large they look like nature got carried away. This is the Ice Age. And the weirdest part is not that humans survived it. The weirdest part is how. Because around 18,000 years ago, in what is now Ukraine, some ancient humans looked at the bones of mammoths and thought, we can build with this, which is insane. A mammoth was not just an animal, it was food, fuel, hide, tools, and in some Ice Age landscapes, architecture. So how did ancient humans survive the Ice Age? Not by standing in the snow being tough, not by simply wearing fur and hoping for the best. They survived by turning a frozen world into something humans could actually live inside. And one of the strangest clues is the mammoth bone house. First, let's place this in time. When people say the Ice Age, they usually mean the last glacial period, a long, cold chapter that lasted roughly from 115,000 to 11,700 years ago. But the coldest peak came much later. The last glacial maximum happened roughly 26,500 to 19,000 years ago, when ice sheets reached their greatest extent. That means the mammoth bone shelters we are talking about were built just after the coldest peak of the Ice Age, not millions of years ago, not in some vague caveman time, around 18,000 years ago, more than 13,000 years before the first Egyptian pyramids. These were not half-human cave monsters stumbling through snow. They were modern humans using Ice Age materials in extremely smart ways. And they were not all living on glaciers like depressed penguins with spears. During the coldest parts of the last Ice Age, huge ice sheets covered large regions, forests shrank in many places, and cold landscapes spread across parts of Europe and Asia. But humans survived mostly around the edges. River valleys, open grasslands with animals, sheltered areas, places where food, fire, materials, and human knowledge could still work together. The Ice Age was not just cold, it was a materials problem. If you want shelter, you need something to build with. Wood is useful. Humans love wood. Wood can become poles, frames, walls, handles, tools, firewood, and half of every bad DIY project. But in some Ice Age landscapes, wood was limited. So what do you do if the land gives you wind, cold, snow, and a lot of mammoth bones? At sites in Ukraine, including Mazurek, archaeologists have found circular structures made from mammoth bones and tusks, dating to roughly 18,248 to 17,764 years ago. These were not random piles. Heavy bones, skulls, jaws, tusks, and long bones were arranged in ways that suggest structure. People were not just eating mammoths. They were organizing the remains into places where humans could work, rest, store things, and survive. Imagine being the first person to suggest this. Everyone is freezing, everyone is tired, and someone says, what if we use the giant dead animal as a wall? And somehow that person was right. Now we have to be careful. Archaeologists are not finding the entire house exactly as it looked. They are finding what survived. Bone survives, stone survives, burned material can survive. But hides, wood, bark, rope, grass, and other soft materials usually disappear. So the mammoth bones may have been the heavy frame, the base, the anchors, or parts of the wall. The rest may have been covered with hides or other materials. Basically, we are seeing the skeleton of the shelter, which is appropriate because it was made of skeletons. So how would a mammoth bone house actually work? First, shape. Many of these structures appear circular or oval. That helps against wind. A round structure gives the wind fewer flat surfaces to attack. Second, weight. Mammoth bones are heavy. A mammoth skull is not something you casually move because you felt like redecorating. That weight could help anchor the structure and hold coverings in place. Third, covering. A bone frame alone is not enough. A house made only of holes is just outside with extra steps. So people likely used hides or other organic materials to block wind, trap heat, and create a protected space. The goal was not comfort like a modern home. No one walked in and said, nice open concept. The goal was survival. Stop the wind, keep some warmth, make a space where people could repair tools, process food, work hides, watch children, and sleep without being attacked by the weather. Not exactly IKEA, more like mammoth, assembly required, and no tiny Allen key. But the shelter was only one part, because a mammoth bone house without fire is just a very creative refrigerator. Fire was infrastructure. It cooked food, warmed bodies, gave light, dried materials, helped people work after dark, gathered the group, and made the night smaller. But fire is needy. Fire is basically a tiny orange toddler. You must feed it, protect it, watch it, understand it, ignore it, and it dies. Feed it wrong, and everyone gets smoked out. Place it badly, and your shelter becomes a lesson. In a cold, open landscape, Fuel was a serious problem. Wood might not always be easy to find. Bones can burn under some conditions, especially when fat is present. Other fuels may have mattered too. People had to know what burned, what smoked, what lasted, and how to keep heat going without destroying the shelter. That is not caveman make fire. That is energy management, which sounds boring until you remember the penalty for failure is freezing. Then there is food. A mammoth was not just a big steak with legs, it was a logistical event. If a group killed or scavenged a mammoth, they suddenly had meat, fat, marrow, hide, bone, tusks, sinew, organs, and no freezer. So the real question was not just, can we get food? It was, can we process it fast enough? Who cuts what? What gets eaten now? What gets stored? What gets dried or frozen? Which bones become tools? Which hides become coverings? Which parts are worth carrying? A huge animal did not politely turn itself into dinner, clothing, shelter, and tools. The group had to do that. Hunting was impressive, but processing was survival. And this is where the mammoth house becomes more than a weird archaeological fact. It shows how ancient humans turned one resource into many solutions. Food became energy, hide became covering, bone became structure, fat could help with calories and fuel, sinew could bind materials, tusks could shape a frame. The animal became part of the camp. That is the real how. They did not just survive the Ice Age by finding resources. They survived by transforming resources, and no one did that alone. No one builds a mammoth bone shelter alone unless they enjoy back pain and failure. Someone had to choose the place. Someone had to understand wind. Someone had to move heavy bones. Someone had to prepare hides. Someone had to manage fire. Someone had to process food. Someone had to make tools. Someone had to watch children. Someone had to stop Kevin from putting a mysterious plant into the soup. Again, Kevin, please. The Ice Age was not beaten by one heroic genius. It was beaten by groups, by shared knowledge, by older people teaching younger people, by children watching skilled hands, by stories that remembered places, dangers, and roots, by people who knew how to turn bone, hide, stone, fat, fire, and memory into a living system. That is why ancient humans are so easy to underestimate. We see a bone structure and think primitive shelter, but that shelter may represent planning, engineering, heat management, food logistics, material science, and cooperation, all without metal, without written instructions, without modern tools, without anyone making a tutorial called How to Build a Mammoth House, beginner friendly. Was it comfortable? Probably not. It was likely smoky, crowded, cold at the edges, full of tools, hides, food, bones, children, and people trying not to die. But compared to the open Ice Age wind, it was control. A small human-made pocket of warmth and organization inside a world that did not care if humans survived. And that is the key. Ancient humans did not survive because the Ice Age became easy. They survived because they made small spaces where life could continue. A shelter, a fire, a food processing area, a storage pit, a remembered route, a group that knew what to do next. The mammoth bone house is a clue to something bigger. Ancient humans could look at a frozen, dangerous, resource-limited world and ask, what can this become? A bone can become a wall. A hide can become a roof. A fire can become a center. A group can become a survival machine. And a brutal landscape can become, somehow, a home. So how did ancient humans survive the Ice Age? They did not simply endure it. They built inside it. They took the pieces of a deadly world, bone, hide, fire, fat, stone, memory, and each other, and turned them into something livable. And around 18,000 years ago, people in Ice Age Ukraine may have sat inside shelters made from the remains of mammoths, warm enough to keep working, protected enough to keep sleeping, organized enough to keep surviving. Outside, the Ice Age kept trying to kill them. Inside, humans kept doing what humans do best, making the impossible slightly less impossible.